So let's talk about this. I love Lord Jamar. I love a lot of things he has to say. He's an OG in hip hop, of course. I love his personality and his realness. But he was having an interview on Art of Dialogue. I wanted to react to this because since Puff has been in jail, I mean, everything about Diddy, I mean, they're throwing everything but the kitchen sink and the kitchen sink at Diddy. And I think that, he's talking about how, Puff set up Biggie to die. I'm going to play this. I think that theory is crazy.
Why did he have to send Biggie out to Cali and all that type of shit? Yeah. Like, that was ridiculous. Like, and one of the things that they were saying in there was that, he was mad at Big and, because Big wanted to make his own label and he was saying he couldn't protect them and all this type of shit. And it was almost sounding like what I was saying. You know what I mean? Like, why would you send that man out there knowing the fucking climate unless you lightweight was setting them up?
I think, my whole perspective on Biggie going to California after Tupac was killed, I think that in and of itself was two things. One, I think on Diddy's or Puff's point of view, I think it was arrogance. For one, it was arrogance. And then I think on Biggie's side, I think Biggie had some reserves about going to the West Coast, obviously, but I think he felt like, well, I ain't had nothing to do with Tupac getting killed, so who was going to want to try to kill me? I think it was underestimating things on Biggie's side. So I think it was a mixture of arrogance and underestimating how hot things were on the West Coast. I've heard other people say this too, that Diddy set up Biggie. You know what? That theory is almost the same as saying initially when Pac was killed, people were saying that Suge had him killed. For years, people were saying that Suge set him up, even though Suge was sitting in the same car and almost got his head blown off. He actually was shot in the head, but it was a graze wound. I heard that for years. Suge set up Pac because Pac wanted to get off of death row and start his own label. And people are saying the same thing about Puff. Oh, Puff had him set up because Biggie wanted his own label. So let's talk about two things. Puff could have easily been killed because he was in the same entourage. He could have easily been shot, and people wanted Puff's head just as much as they wanted Biggie's head on the West Coast. So Puff could have easily gotten killed because he was, I think, a car either ahead of Big or a car behind him. I don't remember, but I think the idea that Puff wanted to kill Big is just a little bit loopy, right? So the second thing is that I don't think Puff had a reason necessarily to, try to kill Biggie. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, Biggie had so much more to do. He was only 2 albums in, you know what I mean?
He also helped to take away the integrity of hip hop by when he went from an executive to a rapper. Who the f did that before? Like, this dude did not rap at all prior to this. And he decided, you know what? I got enough money. I got enough arrogance in myself. I'm behind the scenes. I know how to push the button on an artist. I could push the button on myself. Why don't I just be a fucking artist? Yeah, I know one of the criteria of hip hop. A real MC has to write his own rhymes. F that hip hop shit. I'm about making money. I'll just get niggas to write my rhymes.
I thought that was an interesting point that he was talking about how Puff decided to be a rapper, right? So again, Puff in P. Diddy, Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, whatever you want to call him, in his defense, from what I understand, it was actually Biggie whose idea it was for Puff to start rapping. That's my understanding. From what I understand, Biggie was like, yo, I'm gonna write your rhymes, and why don't we put out an album with you rapping and you could be on my label? I believe that was some information that I heard back in the day, that was the plan, that Puff was actually going to put his album out on Biggie's label. That's what I understand. It was Biggie's idea that inspired Puff to rap. It's just that by the time Puff's album came out, Biggie had already been killed in 97. The other thing is that when you talk about, people are supposed to write their own rhymes, you got to remember Puff is a producer. So if you're going to hold Puff to that standard, you got to hold Dr. Dre to that standard. And we all know The Chronic is probably one of the best albums in hip hop history. And we all know Dr. Dre did not write the majority of that because other people wrote. Snoop Dogg, RBX, Warren G, whoever else, Daz, anybody else, DOC, obviously, they were writing Dr. Dre's rhymes for the Chronic. So if you're gonna claim that Puff brought hip hop down or whatever it was because he decided to put out an album, then you got to hold Dr. Dre to the same standard, which obviously is not going to make sense because most people would not agree with that. Now, in relation to Puff's first album, No Way Out, it's kind of ironic that that's the name of the album in relation to what's going on with him now. Now, the No Way Out album in '97. At the time, I remember when Puff came out and he was rapping, and obviously he was rapping along, along with some of the greats at the time, as far as people he had featuring on the album, and he had Mace on his record a lot, and that whole slow rhyming. We was all talking about how bad of a rapper he was at the time, but you know what? In retrospect, when the album came out, the album was actually pretty good. He had some good songs on there. The production was done well, and the album sold well. I think it went multi platinum, obviously, and it was a good album. You know what I'm saying? Like him or not like him, that No Way Out album was a good album. I didn't rock with the stuff after that so much. Songs here and there I like, but that No Way Out album was good. So my whole thing is that I rock with Lord Jamar, but on these points he's saying, I understand Puff has done all of what he's done, but I think we don't want to rewrite history and start just saying anything. Yo, he had Biggie killed, he destroyed rap. I mean, it's going too far. Y'all let me know what you think in the comments. Crucial Convo.